Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is August 28th, 2024, and welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, your book talk podcast. And I am just so excited for this author today. One of the things that we love doing in our house, especially we got revitalized in a way during COVID, when my husband and I were in this apartment for about a year together, we really got into cooking a whole lot more than we usually do. He even started creating Chef Pedro cooking sites for TikTok and Instagram, and the videos that he was making were absolutely amazing. So we love experimenting and exploring and finding cuisines that are outside of our little circle that we live in. And today's author was somebody that I was so excited to find because I knew nothing about Pakistani cooking before I saw her and her cookbook. And some of the recipes that she shares in her cookbook are just absolutely amazing. It uses herbs and spices that I never would have thought about putting together, and the results are delicious. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring out our guest today. Chef, culinary instructor, and cookbook author, among many other talents, Kausar Ahmed. I always just like to start the show by having my guest tell our audience who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dianne, for having me on this show. I was super excited to chat with you about Pakistani cuisine. My name is Kausar Ahmed, and I currently live in Seattle, but I'm originally from Karachi, Pakistan. The city of Karachi is so diverse with so much food and a variety of cuisines and communities over there. That's where I was born and raised, around food and communities and foodies. And if you sum up what I do, I'm actually a culinary instructor. I call myself an educator more, and I love teaching. I love talking. I'm also an author of the Cookbook Karachi Kitchen, but also co-founder of our food brand with my daughter. We make small batch, preservative-free chutneys and spice blends in Seattle, and we sell them online and in stores. I'm also a food stylist and a prop stylist.
It sounds like you probably have very little downtime.
Oh gosh. No, and I'm just like that. I just love working, and I do love downtime as well, like everybody. But I think working and doing the things I do, that's my passion. That keeps me going.
Mm-hmm. I think it makes a big difference whenever you're actually getting to live your passion. It
Right.
becomes like it's not work.
Exactly. And you never start like that, right? You never start off like that. You're doing a bunch of different things and then you finally find that. And
Hmm.
it's just pure love.
And I can tell you, I've been looking at your spice blends that you have on your website. These look fantastic, especially like some of the chutneys. And I love that you have some of the chutney recipes in your cookbook as well, because
Hmm.
I see tamarind everywhere around here and I never know what to do with it. And then I saw that you actually have two chutneys that have that in there. I'm like, oh, yes, I finally have something I can try it with.
Oh, absolutely. So do you have tamarind blocks where you are, or do you have paste?
We can find the pods here.
Oh, you have the pods. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean that's the real thing actually.
Hmm.
It's just hard work,
Hmm.
cracking the pods and taking that out, but really you should try making that chutney. It's divine. I talk a lot about tamarind in my classes because generally people have seen tamarind paste, but they really don't know what to do with it. So that's always so interesting.
We know, and we even bought a mortar and pestle so that we can get things like that and make our own.
Oh, that's amazing. Let me know when you make it.
Oh, definitely. Now, even though the Karachi Kitchen, the cookbook we're going to be talking about today,
Mhm.
that's your first cookbook, but you have a long history in the food industry.
Mhm.
How did that get started?
Wow, that's a few decades back. Brings back so many memories. Like I said, I love food and cooking. I grew up around my grandmother and my mother. My grandmother was my mom's mom. She was an excellent cook, but not only that, she cooked for communities, and the love for food and communities and cooking and spices. I think that's the love I grew from her, started off from there. And then with my mom, used to shop with my mom and always used to buy really fresh ingredients straight from farmers, and it was literally farm to table and things like that. And then originally, Diane, I was actually an educator, early childhood education and then middle school and high school. That's I used to teach these students. And it was just general education I used to teach them. And then I transitioned for many, many reasons. I transitioned to media and advertising. So I went into the advertising world, but my passion for food did not end over there. It's all interlinked, all very connected. When I started working over there as client executive for companies like Pepsi and Unilever and Nestle,
Mm-hmm.
I started working on the TV commercials. As a team, we would put things together for them. And what was very interesting that my boss knew that Kausar is great at cooking. So she pushed me into working on the side, on the set, on food. So I used to, for example, cook up 800 drumsticks, 1,000
Wow.
kebabs, and things like that. So I got into that world, and then I started a passion. During that time, my kids also were studying, but then they came to America for college. And that's when I started coming over here. And then that's where I started to work with different chefs and do a lot of workshops and do a lot of courses in food. And I really dived into it. And then my food styling side really went up when I started working. I started following actually Denise Vivaldo, who's in California, and I'm such a huge fan of hers, and I learned so much from her. And then I realized that I wanted to do more. I'm picking up a lot of skills. I'm learning so much. I've learned so much. I want to give back to community. So I transitioned that to culinary education in Pakistan. I launched a huge program for the mainstream schools also, but for the underprivileged community. So I worked with women in communities where there was a lot of domestic abuse and drugs and things like that, empowered them, taught them how to cook on the stove and learn how to bake on the stove and set up businesses. I collaborated with bakeries and things, and then I started teaching at one of the largest community schools. And I set up actually a culinary lab over there, a home
Mm-hmm.
economics lab. And in Pakistan, in schools, it's a huge no-no that a boy will be going to a home economics class.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, there are culinary schools there, and there are all those male chefs. But as they are growing up and they are in middle school or in high school, it's like, oh no, the boy's job is, generally speaking, and I'm talking about these kids who are probably, their parents never went to school, so that's
Mm-hmm.
all they know, that it's the woman's job to be cooking.
Mm-hmm.
When I was offered that program, I was like, okay, but I want the boys in my class. In short, it took me 1 year with the government to get that approved. I
Wow.
said, I will not set up a culinary lab unless you let me have boys in my class, because that is what my culinary program is, not only teaching them how to cook. These are essential life skills, they're
Mm-hmm.
social skills, but also I'm countering violent extremism, and
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be managing a lot with them. So just give me a couple of months to prove myself. So anyway, they did. And so using food as change, I set up that lab. I intensely worked on it myself with just one assistant, as passionate as me, for 3 years. And I can't even tell you the change. People from everywhere used to come and meet me, and they said the whole school should be running this program because it had not only teaching them the basics of cooking, but teaching with ingredients which are available for them, simple recipes, cooking on the stove. You don't need an oven or electricity to be baking. You can just do it on your stove. So I taught them all those things, but also social skills, tolerance, patience, math, English, geography. So yeah, that's how I transitioned my culinary program. I worked over here a lot with in New York, food and finance, careers in culinary education, mentoring students. So I would say that, apart from my business, my cookbook, this is a very deep passion of mine that I do.
And I think you mentioned one thing in there that I think is so important that most people don't even really think about too much. I think if you mention it to them, they're like, oh, yeah, right. But they don't think about it, that cooking is such a great way to visually teach math skills.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And for people who have a hard time with the concept of math, baking and cooking is a fantastic way to visually teach them math skills.
Exactly. And they don't even know what's happening to them, what they're learning actually. They like it so much. It's such a fun activity. I saw that wonderful change. Oh my goodness. They started also talking in English, which was so impressive.
What is the official language of Pakistan?
Urdu.
Urdu. Okay. I thought
Yeah.
that's what it was, but I wasn't positive.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I looked it up the other day to see, but
It is Urdu.
since you did have such a background of having fresh foods that was like farm to table, what was it like when you came to America and experienced some typical American foods that people rely on largely now?
Oh gosh, I could never have that, Diane. I am honestly, my kids, when they went to college also, and the food they used to get over there, especially my youngest daughter, was like, this is just not going to work. And she just became vegetarian. And for me, it was very tough. You know, in Pakistan, of course, like probably in a lot of other parts of the world, Pakistan, America always impressed the youth. And we do have fast food over there.
Yeah. I was looking at a map of Karachi, and the first thing that popped up was a KFC.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I know. My kids used to sometimes have KFC, but as a child, I never grew up around that.
Mhm.
So, and my kids also, I used to cook at home. But when I came here, for me, it was like, I don't even want to look at these joints. I don't even want to look at this fast food world at all.
Mhm.
So it was, yeah, and humongous portions
Oh,
also,
yeah.
right? I remember the first time I still laugh about it, and I was like, okay, somebody asked me, do you want Coke? I said, yeah, sure. Do you want a small or a large? I said, yeah, large is okay. And that large just shocked me.
It's like a large so big you have to use two hands to pick it up.
Yes.
That was one thing. Whenever we go back, because my husband and I have lived here in Europe for about 10 years now. And whenever we go
Mhm.
back and they bring out a plate that's not just like a regular dinner plate size, but like a serving platter with your
I
meal on
know.
it, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't eat this.
No, no. And if you do, it'll take you a couple of days to digest it.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I have noticed the most about the difference between the food in the United States and then moving here to Europe. Besides
Hmm.
just the portion, but the additives that are allowed to go in food. In the United States, there's so many things
Right.
that are allowed to make the process cheaper.
Yes.
That
Yes.
here they have purity laws that they don't allow
Mhm.
certain things into food here. And now whenever I go home to visit my family, it's hard to eat some of the things because it makes me sick.
It is processed food and, so many additives. But it's really good to see over the years the transition that is coming around. I mean, that
Yeah.
kind of food is there as well. But the awareness, I would say, there is so much awareness generally.
Hmm.
And I've lived in California also and New York also, but I just generally it's there too. But I see that Seattle is a very, very conscious state fresh produce, fresh food, no additives. I mean, it's all there, of course, but there's a lot of awareness. I'm always happy to see that.
We have had a couple of authors on who have cookbooks that feature Indian food.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you about the differences between Indian recipes and Pakistani recipes because I know that they do have a shared spice palette.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, absolutely. So yeah, we do have a shared spice palette in many ways, but when you talk about spices, I think the usage is a little different
Mm-hmm.
in the spices. Like, for example, we use turmeric in everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the quantity is a little less. I know that they use a lot of turmeric in their food and also Asafetida, which is also called Hing.
Mm-hmm.
We use that for medicinal purposes. We don't use it for cooking. I think those are the two main ingredients, but I think the balance of the spices is very different, not overpowering in any way. But I would also say, Diane, that our food would be a little more closer to the North Indian food. But also, the biggest difference is that Pakistan is a country of meat lovers
Mm-hmm.
and we do not eat pork. So that is not something we eat at all. And we use a lot of beef. Beef is consumed over there as well, but also the different regions have different flavors. For example, Karachi is a very, very most diverse city. And we have such a different palate over there. A little more spicy food, no asafoetida, no overpowering turmeric, extremely rich flavors. A lot of influence would also be from the Mughal cuisine, I would say, from India, the Mughlai cuisine that comes down decades and decades. So some of that influence is there, but also the Persian influence is there a little as well. And it's interesting that there is the Chinese influence as well. A lot of Chinese restaurants there, which is like the Indo-Chinese, and it's not the typical Chinese that you would be eating over here.
I think some of the most surprising recipes for me anyway in your cookbook were the desserts. Things like the pineapple souffle. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing.
Yeah, that is so good. So, when I was writing this cookbook, I think that was also a time when I was here a lot in America. I was in between Pakistan and America. And I really felt that a lot of people did not understand Pakistan or Pakistani cuisine. And
Mhm.
it was always the impression that there is no such diversity over there in culture and food. And that's what I wanted to portray, the diversity I grew up around. And I used to make all these different recipes, put them together. The souffle recipe is so quick. Diane, if you read it, it's just divine. People just gobble it down.
I would bet because it looks amazing. And there's so many of these photos in here. They're just fantastic too. Your vanilla saffron cheesecake with all
Hmm.
of the fresh figs on there, that looks
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, that's also divine. And I made a cheesecake, I think, around every 2 weeks. I had a cheesecake in the fridge all the time because my kids just loved it. And I would have a lot of kids coming over. So, yeah, that is a really good cheesecake.
Well, and my husband loves cheesecake, so if I had one in the refrigerator all the time, he would be a happy person. But I was really surprised that there's actually 2 tablespoons of saffron in this.
Yes, yes.
I mean, that has
And I
got to have a wonderful flavor throughout that whole
It
thing.
does. It does. It's so aromatic. It has a great flavor, and then it just blends in really well with all the cream cheese and
Hmm.
everything else. So it's not overpowering. And a lot of people question me because there was a time when saffron, it is expensive.
Hmm.
There was a time that it was like ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And initially it was like, oh, wow, 2 tablespoons of gold in there.
Yeah. And the one of the most surprising recipes was your Black Forest cake recipe. Because since
Hmm.
Black Forest cake is such a traditional German cake, and it happens to be my husband's favorite,
Oh,
I
wow.
really loved the take that you did on this.
Well, I would say my mom did that take on it. You know, it's such a delicious take on it, I tell you. It is.
That was actually the first cake that I ever made for my husband.
Hmm.
I was showing him this recipe. He's like, okay, yeah, you need to try this one now. So even him just reading your version of the Black Forest cake, he is like dying to try this.
Well, I hope he likes it. Please let me know if he approves. He's had the real thing.
So now what is it that you think made her switch from the cherries to the peaches?
Well, you know, cherries weren't available, not even cans of cherries at that point. And she was just so desperate to make this. There was this, you know, as I'm sure you read the story, there was that bakery over there, which was actually a new bakery, like a niche bakery, very expensive, delicious cakes. And we had the original Black Forest cake from there.
Mm-hmm.
She probably imported the cherries. I think so. And then my mom was like, I need to make this. And she couldn't find cherries. And then she said, oh, okay, I am going to make it with peaches. And that's what she did. That's the only reason that she had to switch. And she was very happy with her with her discovery.
I think that is such a great twist on this one, and it looks amazing in your photos.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now, since you are a food stylist, did you style your own photos in this cookbook?
Yes, all the photos I styled, and then there was my daughter's friend who is a cinematographer in Hollywood. He is a photographer as well. He did all the photography, and he said, I will do all the photography because I want to eat up all the food.
Was, was that the deal? He got to have the food afterwards.
Yes, yes. So I said, yeah, I am going to make the lights and everything. If one portion goes bad, I'll have a backup for you. So that was the deal.
You know, and I love some of these other photos that you have besides the food. You have the clay pots, you have a picture of someone leading a camel. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
so many great photos in here besides
Yeah,
the food.
yeah. So another friend of mine who lives in Pakistan and she's a photographer, she's the one who took those. So if you see the first picture, this is like the traditional bus we have.
Hmm.
And when I saw this picture, she said, what do you think of this? I said, oh my goodness, it should be right at the opening of the book.
Hmm.
And this is the beginning of the journey. So that was my thought when I saw this, you know, that lady sitting in the corner. So yeah, she did a great job of capturing all those pictures.
Well, and I love the picture at the end where it's the roundabout in the
Oh yeah,
street with all of the streaks of the lights from the moving cars.
yeah. I'm glad you liked them. Yeah, there was so much thought. In this little book, we just wanted to capture a lot of Pakistani essence, I would say.
Well, you know, and just looking at these photos, it made me want to go and look up more about Karachi and see, what was available there. And I have to admit, it's like I was laughing for a minute. Karachi, for people who don't know where it is a coastal city that's off of, was it the Bay of Oman?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like right off the Arabian Sea. And
Mm-hmm.
they have this wonderful beachfront. But then
Yes.
whenever I pulled up the Google map, the first thing I saw was 4 water parks that are only like between maybe 20 and 30 kilometers from the beachfront. And I'm like, okay, the people here must love the water.
Oh, yes. So Karachi, like you said, it's a coastal city, and we have the largest fisheries over there, and all the fishermen and people love the beach. You are absolutely right. Karachi, you know, they come down from up north and from Punjab and Lahore. They come down to Karachi to visit the beaches.
Well, and you can tell that this has to be a tourist town because there's like so many zoos and museums and
Hmm.
amusement parks. And I mean, it's amazing everything that they have crammed into this town.
It's the city that never sleeps, actually. You go out at 4 a.m., you want to eat something, you will find something.
Hmm.
And sometimes I feel that, oh, people don't really sleep here at all. But it's also called the city of lights, which sometimes it's not. because sometimes there's a lot of load shedding and things, but the population has really grown over there. And there are a lot of tourists, I will say, but I think the tourists are more going with time. They do come down to Karachi to just get a glimpse of it and experience the madness over there.
Hmm.
But they go a lot up north to the mountains, which is like just the most beautiful place to be, especially in summer.
Well, it looks absolutely amazing. And I could not believe there was one website that I was looking at for one of the movie theaters there. This
Hmm.
place was incredible. It was like several stories tall with all of these different theaters. They had a cricket field out behind the theater and
Yes,
just so much packed into this one
yes.
small space where you could just go and spend all day there doing
Oh my
various
goodness.
things.
Yes, there is that theater is just divine, and it's multiple stories, as you said, and then there great food you can just pick up
Mhm.
and go in and watch a movie, and you really spend a lot of time over there. And there's a play area for kids as well, and there's a mall close by, a huge mall, so people really spend a lot of time and it's usually packed, especially on weekends. So there's so much to do in Karachi. And I would say the food scene over there is just becoming bigger and bigger and bigger.
So I think a lot of people, if they like to get out and experience new things and new cultures, if they have never been to Karachi, this would probably be the first place that they should go in Pakistan because
Oh,
it just looks
yes.
amazing.
Yeah, it does. I would also recommend that. Before you move on to the northern areas, take a glimpse of Karachi, just experience the diversity, the culture, the delicious food, and the madness over there, and then move on to the calmer and serene areas.
Now, I know that your book, The Karachi Kitchen, Classic and Contemporary Flavors of Pakistan, is your first cookbook, but do you
Mhm.
have plans for more?
Oh, yes. Diane, I've been writing my second book for a few years now, I'll be honest, because I just got so caught up with the business side
Hmm.
that I had to just put that aside. But also, I think I started it and I've got a ton going on with my second cookbook. But there are certain things that I'm really researching and I need to go back and spend some time over there
Hmm.
because this first cookbook we were really happy that people really loved it and we were very happy with it. The second cookbook I personally just wanted to be just a little different. I mean, of course the recipes, everything is going to be there, so
Hmm.
it's in the works. I hope I can speed it up and have it out by maybe end of next year or the year after. So let's see. And then with my second cookbook, I definitely want a picture with every recipe.
Hmm.
That was, our take from the first day.
And that is one of the things that is so helpful. Like somebody like me from Kansas,
Right.
never having had some of these dishes or even
Hmm.
seen some of these dishes. Following a recipe is great, but you
Hmm.
always want to have that photograph to know that you've actually made it come out right.
Yes, exactly.
Because since you can't have somebody there to say, yes, that tastes correct, you can at least look at the picture and say, yes, this looks like the dish that they made for that recipe
Yes,
in the cookbook. So I must have done it right.
exactly. It doesn't have to look the same, but you know that, oh, yeah, it's pretty similar. I'm
Mhm.
pretty happy. And if you just blindly jump into a recipe, and that's how I always felt. So that is why, we really wanted picture with each recipe.
Well, the cookbook is absolutely wonderful. I mean, the photos, the stories,
Thank
the
you.
the layout, it is fantastic.
Thank you. It was a great team to work with.
I think anybody who is hesitant about trying something new, I think this cookbook would put them at ease. I think that they could very easily follow these recipes and come out with some truly authentic dishes because of the way that you have it all laid out.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've had parents cook with their kids
Mhm.
using my cookbook, and it's just been so interesting to hear stories of how people have used it and cooked with it. There are quick recipes in it too, like the green chicken, the murghara masala. That is such a simple, quick recipe. If somebody is short of time or wants
Mhm.
to put together a quick recipe, that's a great recipe. If you want to go really elaborate, the meatballs are really, really good. But one of the recipes, which is one of my favorite, and it's just like it's finger licking, is the dum ke pasinde, which is the masala rub roast beef tenderloin. If
Mhm.
anybody eats beef, this recipe is just, this is my grandmother's recipe. And a lot of spices are in there, but it just comes together so well. And you can do so much with the beef that you've cooked.
Well, and my husband is very big on beef, so that would be a good one for him.
Oh, yeah. And usually people have most of the spices included in this, but if there's something, I use whole spices in it. And if you
Mhm.
feel that, no, I don't have all the whole spices, I have some ground spices, you can always mix it up. It'll turn out really good.
Now, for somebody like me who's vegetarian, could you
Mhm.
switch the meat out for vegetarian meat?
You can, absolutely. You can do it. And you can try tofu with it too.
Oh, yeah.
It'll turn out really good.
We actually have some really good vegetarian steaks over here that I have found that are amazing.
Ooh, really?
Even my husband is impressed with them.
Oh, wow.
I was thinking I could try that for me and then do actual beef for him.
Oh, that would be really good. Yes, yes, you should definitely give it a try.
Now, this is the part of the show where we like to do 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but we just refuse to give up. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
So, question one, what is the easiest dish for a new cook to learn to impress their guests from this cookbook?
The lentils. If you are a vegetarian,
Hmm.
I would say the lentils are really, really quick. And if you like chicken, then the green chicken.
Let's see, is that the lentils and rice? That one? Because I saw
Mm.
the lentil and rice pilaf.
So there's the lentil and rice pilaf, but there's the lentil curry. That's on 43.
Ah, okay.
And if you're putting together a quick dish,
Hmm.
then this with just plain rice, plain basmati rice is great. And with the green chicken, and you said quick dish, right?
Just an easy one for a beginning
Yeah.
cook.
Yeah. So these two are the easiest ones. So these two would be great with rice and then naan or any kind of pita.
Yeah, that lentil curry, the dal, oh, that looks
Mm.
good.
Yeah. It's really good.
Okay, question two. What is your favorite American food that you found once you moved to the United States?
Oh my goodness. Typical American food, honestly, I'm not a fan of, but
Hmm.
I will say that if I'm given a choice, in certain places, I like burgers and
Hmm.
fries.
That is definitely a typical American food.
Yes, yes. So that is why I thought, let me say something which is like typical, but I wouldn't say I like the franchises or the food
Mhm.
chains, but in certain places, I like that.
I hate to admit it, but my still biggest craving is Kraft macaroni and cheese. Totally
Oh,
manufactured
yeah.
food,
Oh my
but
goodness. Well, thanks for reminding me. I love it too.
and I feel so bad. I got my husband hooked on it. My husband had never had it until like about 2 years ago. I think maybe we ordered it during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
now he's hooked on it too.
I know it is, right? Although, my stomach doesn't really do too well after having that, but I do love that.
So yeah, it's total manufactured food, but oh, it's so addictive. So now, question three. What is your favorite dish to cook?
On a daily basis, generally,
Mhm.
I love cooking fish, all types of fish. That is one of my favorite to cook. And I also love pasta.
Mhm.
So I cook a lot of pasta as well.
Question four. What do you do when you don't have time to cook?
I have to take out time.
So there's no like
But
hot pockets in the freezer.
Well, I usually don't freeze food, but then if I don't, I'll tell you what I do. I put together a quick Pakistani omelet
Hmm.
with bread or paratha.
So now what makes the omelet Pakistani?
So we have green peppers in it, cilantro, chopped onions, chopped tomatoes, a little mint, red chili powder, salt, and just whisk it up and cook it. And
That
it's
sounds
divine.
amazing.
Yeah, it's divine. And then, if you have paratha at home, you roll it up, make a roll, or
Hmm.
then a lot of times I just make a sandwich out of it. So that's my quickest take. And if my mom is around, then I also give her that.
That's amazing. Sounds good. So now question 5. Since we are a podcast about books, what is your favorite author to read when you want to relax?
I actually love Madhur Jaffrey's stories. And then I also love Samin's Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. I love reading her books sometimes when I really have time to read it.
Have you ever read any books by Sonali Dev? She has got these fantastic women's fiction kind of books that have like a little bit of romance, a lot of humor. They're just really good.
Mm-hmm.
She's a
Really?
guest that I had on my podcast.
I'm going to note down. Which one did you say?
Sonali Dev.
Oh, I might have actually. Yes, I have actually. I've been planning to get some more of those. I also, she passed away, a Pakistani chef, and I do read her books too. She just actually had, I think, one or two which she put together with the food channel over there.
Hmm.
Zubaida Tariq, that's what her name is. But her books are not only recipes, but also little tips and tricks about health and kitchen and things like that. So if I am in the mood to read that, I do that too a lot of times.
I love books that do that, that they give you so much more. There's so many things that people don't talk about as food being a part of your health
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and how you can use food to improve your health. So many people don't think about this. They only think of it as about diet and losing weight. It's like, no, it goes well beyond that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She was like one of the top cooking hosts. And in her TV shows, she would teach a recipe, but she would always have these little tips and tricks for kids and adults, digestion and
Mhm.
health and different things. You can use this for your hair also, and you can do this for this. So I also just love that.
I know for me, one of the biggest things that helped me improve my health was when I started to use herbs and spices in my food to
Mm-hmm.
improve things. It was incredible how much I could do with my menu.
Exactly, right? Yes, I think people are becoming a little aware of that, but I
Mm.
think there's more awareness needed.
Yeah, definitely. And that is one of the things that I really like about foods from Eastern cultures because they
Hmm.
do use a wider spice palette that
Hmm.
a lot of Americans have never even seen. And it's
No.
incredible the health benefits that these spice palettes have.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, they do. They do.
So I think a cookbook like yours is really important because it introduces things like more ginger and more turmeric and things like that that are so beneficial into
Hmm.
people's diets.
It is. It is. I think, of course, cookbooks go to a larger audience globally. But
Mhm.
when I'm teaching classes also, I really emphasize on all these things. And I always have just so much to teach people and talk about the different spices and the ingredients and that why do you use these? How are they beneficial? And, all those things.
So this has been absolutely fantastic. Your cookbook is amazing.
Thank you.
Where can people find you and your cookbook? And if they're in the United States, where they can buy your spice blends?
In the United States, if you're in Seattle, you can go to PCC community markets or town and countries. There are a bunch of stores, but we are also online and we send our products nationwide. You can go on our Karachi Kitchen Foods website and you can order online.
And where can they get your book if they are outside the United States?
Amazon.
This has been absolutely fabulous. All of your contact information is going to be in the description of today's podcast and on burkhartbooks.com. And you are also in Book Banter magazine with the recipe of your Black Forest cake.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dianne. This was just amazing. Thank you so much for chatting. I love chatting. I can go on forever.
And, honestly, I could have talked to her for hours too. She was so much fun and so informative. Oh my gosh, it was such a wonderful conversation. And I plan on doing some cooking this weekend, so keep watching our social media for photos from my attempt to replicate some of the recipes from the Karachi Kitchen, classic and contemporary flavors of Pakistan. And then go get a copy for yourself so that you can try them too. Now, next week, I'm going to be joined by Delaney Lombardi, and we're going to be discussing her memoir, Running Around Naked, where she tells all about her amazing childhood where she grew up with nudists. It's really fascinating. You're going to love her story. She is such an incredible person. Be sure to come back and check that out. Now, just yesterday, I finished the last interview for all of these episodes all the way through mid-December. Season 3 is already in the can. And I'm going to be working very hard on all of the magazines coming out for the rest of this year, plus getting ready to upload all of the print versions to Amazon so that they can go on pre-sale and drop in October for celebration of our 1-year anniversary of Book Banter magazine. Keep watching all of our social media, and if you want to be the first to know about all of the interviews that are coming up, all of the special things that we've got going on, join our mailing list at burkhartbooks.com. I only send out 1 email a week when it is time for broadcasting the podcast, so we're not going to spam you with a whole bunch of stuff, but you will be the first to know about everything that is going on. And if you're an author and you would like to be a guest in Season 4 of Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, our Book Talk podcast, we're going to announce it first on our mailing list. So you will get the first opportunity to submit your application to be one of the authors on our podcast and in Book Banter magazine. You really don't want to miss out. Because you know what? If you all love books like we do, you don't want to miss a single episode of this podcast or an issue of our magazine. So now you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you all to go forth and be really, really happy.